evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. The U.S. is lifting its travel ban. Foreign nationals will soon be able to fly in, but only if they've been vaccinated. We bring you more on why the decision was made and how it affects Americans overseas. Protesters gathered at a Justice for January 6th event in front of the Capitol on Saturday. The event concluded peacefully amid heavy police presence. NTD speaks with the event organizer. A doctor claims he violated Texas law to perform an illegal abortion. In an op-ed, he lays out his case. Democrats hit a roadblock in their plans to create a pathway to citizenship for 8 million illegal immigrants. But Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says they're not giving up. And Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas visits the migrant camp in Del Rio, Texas. He warns migrants not to come and says many will be deported, but Republican governors want long-term solutions and requests a meeting with President Biden. The White House is going to lift U.S. travel bans on international visitors, but only for the fully vaccinated. NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us the details and why the White House chose to do this now.
Come November, foreign nationals can fly into the U.S. if they show proof of vaccination before boarding.
In early November, we'll be putting in place strict protocols to prevent the spread of COVID-19 from passengers flying internationally into the United States by requiring that adult foreign nationals traveling to the United States be fully vaccinated. Obviously, this is the conclusion of a policy process on that particular issue, an important one facing many people around the world.
The move opens up travel to non-U.S. citizens from 33 countries, which includes many European nations. The White House COVID coordinator, Jeffrey Zients, says those travelers will have to show proof of a negative COVID test within 3 days of arrival, and they will also have to undergo contact tracing. In July, the White House decided not to lift travel restrictions due to concerns over the Delta variant, but now the administration is putting in place this strict global system, which is consistent for all countries.
Well, back in July, we also announced that there were a series of working groups that were both interagency and working with a range of countries and partners in the world to determine what the most equitable and clear policies should be moving forward to resume broader international travel. And the older rules were not equitable in our view, and they were a bit confusing. And so this was an effort to pursue that.
Unvaccinated Americans coming back to the U.S. will have to test negative 1 day before they leave and test again after they arrive. And as for vaccine requirements on domestic flights, Zients says nothing is off the table. The White House COVID coordinator does not say which vaccines are going to be accepted, but says the CDC will give more details later. And the rules only apply to air travel, while land borders with Canada and Mexico remain closed to non-essential travel. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Protesters gathered in D.C. on Saturday asking for justice for the suspects in the January 6th Capitol breach. Officials reinstalled fencing around the Capitol as many media outlets warned of right-wing extremists and domestic terrorists. NTD's D.C. correspondent and host of the Capitol Report, Steve Lance, was there on Saturday and is here with us now. Steve, tell us what it was like on Saturday.
Yes, Steph, so I can tell you I was covering the event here on Saturday, and the atmosphere was almost surreal. You could really feel the overwhelming police presence in the area. You know, our studios here are just across from the Capitol, and on the rooftop of our building where our studios are located, there were special police units spotting with binoculars and communicating with the units on the ground. From what we could tell, much of the communications were focused on the agitators who were trying to stir trouble at the event. Now, the plainclothes and uniformed police presence on the ground was also palpable. Social media was lighting up with some interesting posts on that topic over the weekend as well. Another important thing to note here was the presence of Antifa, or those who were looking to incite and stir up the people that were attending the events. This has already been discovered and proven as a tactic that they use, especially on the events of January 6th, where you had a man called John Sullivan, a BLM supporter who can be seen on videotape inciting the riots. Mr. Sullivan is still facing 8 charges in his involvement on January 6th. You can see here in some of the footage we've been rolling, a BLM supporter trying to stir the crowd and being escorted away by the police on Saturday. Now, some of the people I spoke with attending the event were actually there on the day of January 6th. They did not breach the Capitol and say hundreds of thousands of people, the vast majority attending that day, were just like them.
People were frustrated about the election disintegrity, but people were so nice, and they were just such patriots. They were here because their voices weren't being heard, and this was the last remedy they had. And so when we went, of course, there are these things called agent provocateurs, agitators, right? And so they start, and a lot of them wearing MAGA hats. You know, they were undercover.
Now, from what I could see and talking to a wide range of people attending the rally, this was a diverse group. There were rational, peaceful people that were simply there to support what they say is due process. And none of those whom we spoke to denied the events that took place on January 6th.
Some of them have committed some crimes, rightfully so. People should, you know, if you get in trouble, you do that, you should do the time. No one's disputing that. But when you're getting charged for misdemeanor and being treated like a domestic terrorist, that's a problem.
I don't believe in demonizing anyone. I voted Libertarian. I voted for Obama. I voted for Trump. Only because I felt he was a better man than Biden.
And if we had this, we wouldn't be here fighting about this.
After concluding the event and telling all of the supporters to thank the Capitol Police upon exiting, organizer Matt Brainerd spoke with me and told me what he was trying to get across at this event.
We're going to stand up for these Americans who are being politically persecuted, who are being treated disparately. We're going to stand up for Ashley Babbitt so she gets the investigation she deserves. And we're going to demand transparency from the Capitol Police Department.
Now, Steph, from what we witnessed, this event was very peaceful. The police presence definitely helped maintain order as there were counter-protesters and agitators swarming the event, and they were just removed or kept at a distance when they became aggressive. When I asked organizer Matt Brainerd what his plans are moving forward, he told us that they have similar events planned in 17 cities over the coming weeks, and that he expects each of those to be just as peaceful as this event was. Steph, back to you.
Thanks, Steve. And the fencing that was specifically installed around the Capitol for this event has already been removed. And a doctor in Texas says he's rebelled against the state's new fetal heartbeat law. He came out publicly in an op-ed willing to be sued to put this law to the test. NTD's Miguel Moreno's got the story.
Dr. Alan Braid performs abortions, and he says any day now he could be sued for at least $10,000 for performing an abortion in violation of a new Texas law. He identified himself in an op-ed he wrote for the Washington Post. In it, he says, "For me, it is 1972 all over again." And that is why, on the morning of September 6th, I provided an abortion to a woman who, though still in her first trimester, was beyond the state's new limit. I acted because I had a duty of care to this patient, as I do for all patients, and because she has a fundamental right to receive this care. Braid also said he did it to put the law to the test in court. The Texas fetal heartbeat law bans doctors from performing an abortion if they detect a fetal heartbeat.
And so what this doctor is doing is just reflecting the abortion culture, the abortion doctor's view.
Doreen Denny is Vice President of Government Relations for Concerned Women for America. She says her organization believes that children should be protected at conception and beyond.
And, you know, if you look at his op-ed, you notice that he doesn't even want to call the Texas bill by its title, the Texas Heartbeat Bill. He doesn't even talk about a heartbeat. He talks about cardiac activity. And he also reflected that he thought abortion restrictions in the state of Texas were some of the most restricted in the country till now. They required, for example, an ultrasound before you'd have an abortion. You know, the abortion culture does not want women, vulnerable women, to understand that their baby that they're carrying is truly a human child.
Pro-life organization Texas Right to Life told the New York Times that they're looking into Braid's claim, but they're dubious that this is just a legal stunt. According to the report, Texas Right to Life looks for tips on doctors who violate the law. Only private citizens can sue doctors who provide illegal abortions. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And the highest court in the land is set to hear arguments on a highly anticipated abortion case this December. Mississippi will defend its 2018 law, which prohibits abortions after 15 weeks. And the GOP is aiming to regain its strongholds in Georgia by appealing to more voters, in particular Asian and Pacific Americans. The Republican Party is opening a new community center there to do just that. Here are the details.
This Asian Pacific American Community Center, opened by the Republican National Committee, is the second in the country and the first in Georgia. It opened its doors last Friday in the state's second most populous county, Gwinnett County. The location is important.
Two most competitive congressional districts, District 7 and District 6. Between the last 10 years, our Asian population in District 6 has increased by 51%. In District 7 has increased by a whopping 83%.
Both districts had been Republican strongholds for decades, but flipped blue in the last two elections. The GOP also lost both Senate seats in Georgia. Now the party plans to recapture the seats by appealing to the principles that Asian Americans value.
They love America, they love free enterprise, they hate communism, they value work and education.
Exit polls from recent elections show that nationally, Asian Americans vote overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party, usually by 60 to 70%. But the GOP seems confident they can rally Asian Americans on a key issue: their attitudes on socialism and communism.
To Democrats, the government never has quite enough power, and they are pushing the United States towards socialism and communism, the same systems that have literally oppressed billions of people in Asia.
Asian American community leaders speaking at the opening event highlight patriotism and the need to preserve American values.
This country provides us everything we need to stand up.
Yes.
Now, we've got a time to pay back, because today is still land of opportunity, this greatest country in the world that I know. However, we're not sure about 100 years later.
The Republican Party plans to open more such centers in other parts of the country. They've already done so in Orange County, California.
President Biden is in New York for his first speech at the United Nations. But he's met with protesters who are against his vaccine rollout. Some say more countries need access to the vaccine to end the pandemic. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
Vaccinate the world. That's what the people here are saying. If you're in America, you can get vaccinated if you want to. But they are saying your chances are slim to none if you're in a poor country.
Take back vaccines now!
President Biden is visiting New York City to speak at the United Nations. Protest organizers say he has blood on his hands for not making the vaccine more accessible to poorer countries, and people are dying as a result.
Biden's inability to act to make the vaccine globally equitably available is racist. It's an apartheid policy because the people that it most affects are black and brown people in low-income countries.
There are a few things protesters want changed. One is that pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of profit off the vaccine. The development of the Moderna vaccine was funded by taxpayers, and now the company is profiting from it.
Call on Biden to do the right thing and make sure that the pharmaceutical companies will share their patents.
One person pointed out that vaccines are not being used and they're getting thrown away in some countries.
Dose reallocation. We have vaccine doses that are being thrown out, that are expiring, that high-income countries are just hoarding and not giving to low- and middle-income countries.
Biden is expected to stay in New York City for 2 days and then head back to Washington. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Democrats are looking at other options to give illegal immigrants a pathway to citizenship after hitting a roadblock with the Senate Parliamentarian. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says they're not giving up. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more details from Capitol Hill.
Senate Democrats want to include immigration reform in their $3.5 trillion budget bill.
Specifically, they want to grant amnesty to around 8 million illegal immigrants. But the Senate parliamentarian, that is the woman who oversees Senate rules, says that this pathway to citizenship does not belong in the budget reconciliation bill. So why not? What is budget reconciliation? The president of the Liberty Government Affairs, Brian Darling, explains.
To make sure that the top line budget items, the amount of money that Congress wants to spend over the year, is the same as what they end up spending at the end of the year. So in other words, they'll set down a budget and say, here are the caps for each appropriations bill.
Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough interprets the Senate rules, and she says the Democrats' pathway to citizenship plan deals more with policy than it does budget. So that's why she opposes including the measure in the Democrats' budget reconciliation bill. McDonough ruled, quote, "The policy changes of this proposal far outweigh the budgetary impact scored to it, and it is not appropriate for inclusion in reconciliation." Republican lawmakers praised the ruling, while Senate Leader Chuck Schumer responded that he's deeply disappointed, but that he also has alternate proposals to try and move ahead with their plan. The Senate is not bound by law to follow the parliamentarian's ruling, although traditionally the Senate usually does heed their advice. But one progressive Democrat, Representative Ilhan Omar, is pushing leaders in her party and the White House to ignore the parliamentarian and go it alone. Now, if Senate leadership does choose to follow the Senate parliamentarian's ruling, it's unlikely that they'll be able to pass that pathway to citizenship through a regular bill because they'd need 10 Republicans in order to pass it through the regular process. Now, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer said he did have alternate proposals that he plans to propose to the Senate parliamentarian on how to get around this roadblock and really push this plan forward. And he said he will be meeting with the Senate parliamentarian about this in the coming days. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The migrant crisis continues under the Del Rio Bridge. Authorities are taking steps to clear the encampment, but Republican governors want long-term solutions. They're asking to meet with President Biden to discuss ways to secure the border. And the Texas governor wants Biden to declare a federal emergency. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Numerous illegal immigrants were seen leaving the de facto migrant camp under the Del Rio International Bridge in Texas Monday. The ones seen here are heading back across the Rio Grande River to Mexico. Some are getting supplies, while others are avoiding deportation. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas traveled to the area Monday. He calls the surge in migrants, the around 16,000 of them under the bridge, rather sudden and dramatic, and he denounces what he calls false information driving the influx.
We have reiterated that our borders are not open, and people should not make the dangerous journey. Individuals and families are subject to border restrictions, including expulsion.
He adds that many of the migrants will be deported. Border Chief Raul Ortiz told Fox News Sunday that only adult men will be expelled, while most family units will be processed and released into the U.S. Mayorkas says the Biden administration hopes to secure 1 to 3 flights per day to return the migrants. And they're also providing additional supplies, water and portable toilets for migrants at the camp. But many governors around the country want long-term solutions to the ongoing border crisis. 26 Republican governors sent a letter to President Biden Monday, requesting a meeting to discuss ways to secure the border. The governors stressed the damage done by months of illegal border crossings. They wrote that Biden's border policy has instigated an international humanitarian crisis, spurred a spike in international criminal activity, and opened the floodgates to human traffickers and drug smugglers, endangering public health and safety in their states. The governors are asking to meet at the White House within the next 15 days. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott is also asking Biden to issue an emergency declaration for his state due to the escalating crisis at the border. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
This morning, the FBI searched the home of Brian Laundrie. This comes after human remains were found, which authorities believe to be the body of Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old who went missing during a cross-country road trip. Laundrie is named a person of interest in the case, but his whereabouts in recent days are unknown. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
Human remains were found on Sunday in a camping area in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, and it's believed to be the body of Gabby Petito. FBI agent Charles Jones said a full forensic identification has not been completed to confirm 100% that the remains are the body of Petito, but her family has been notified. Video shows at least a dozen law enforcement officers on Monday entering the Laundrie's home in Northport, Florida. Police said the parents of 23-year-old Brian Laundrie were escorted from the home before the search and were later brought back inside for questioning. Investigators are still searching for Laundrie, who returned to the Florida home without Petito earlier this month. He declined to talk to investigators then and went missing last week. Laundrie's family on Saturday told police they had not seen him for days. They said he left home with his backpack Tuesday and told them he was going to a local nature reserve, a Northport police spokesman said on Saturday. But after a weekend search of the Florida Nature Preserve, they failed to find Laundrie. Authorities said in a statement that they exhausted all avenues in searching the grounds of the 24,000-acre Carlton Reserve in Sarasota County. Laundrie has been a named person of interest in the case, but his whereabouts in recent days are unknown. Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino called the news of the discovery heartbreaking, adding the Laundrie family prays for Gabby and her family. Her father, Joseph Petito, tweeted a picture of her on Sunday evening, saying she touched the world. FBI agent Jones said investigators were seeking information from anyone who may have seen Petito or Laundrie around Grand Teton National Park. An autopsy is scheduled for Tuesday to confirm the identity of the remains. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And West Coast wildfires are threatening giant sequoias again this year. Firefighters are taking steps to protect them by wrapping the trees in foil.
The new KNP complex fire started in early September as a result of 2 lightning-sparked blazes. It currently affects the Sequoia National Park in Northern California. A national park official said the fire isn't imminently approaching the community, but could continually grow.
In the case of some of our most iconic trees, such as the General Sherman tree, which is the largest tree in the world, we have one of our tools is to be able to wrap it in a high-tech aluminum foil fiberglass fabric.
The trees are wrapped around the base to protect its previous burn scars and even historic buildings.
It's the same material that firefighters use for their emergency shelters.
Jordan says that the fire reaches underneath the foil into the